Hello and welcome back to my channel. So sorry it's been like a year since I last made a video, but I have a major life update, and I thought it would make for a good video topic. Anyway, I'm learning how to drive. I haven't been behind the rear of a car since I was a teenager in high school. For the longest time, the thought of driving has been terrifying to me, and still is to be honest, so it's taken a lot of courage to do this. I don't know if any studies have been done on this, but anecdotally I've heard that a lot of autistic people don't drive, and I've been contributing to that statistic until now. Just the fact that it takes so much concentration, you need to focus on and be aware of so many things at once. You can follow the rules perfectly and still have things go wrong due to the unpredictability of other people, and a mistake can have horrible consequences. It was all just very intimidating to me. So how did I go about this? Well, learning how to drive is something I've been waffling on for years. There's been many times in the last 5 years alone that I thought about it, did some research only to back out, until now. So I started by researching places in my area that teach driving. For anyone in a similar situation, if you can do it, it's probably a better idea to have a professional company teach you, rather than a friend or family member, because they usually have their own brakes in case something goes wrong. Which was my thinking, so I called the ones I found up, got information such as the prices, what the learning process is like, and compared them. Then when I came to a decision on which one to go with, I made the appointment. I have 5 lessons, 1.5 hours each, with the option to add more lessons afterward if I feel like I need it. After I booked the lessons, I spent the time waiting for the first lesson by doing things like watching YouTube videos on driving tutorials and tips, and reading a lot of beginner guides on basic driver things like the rules of the road, for example, as a refresher. First lesson was on a Monday at 10 a.m. I was incredibly nervous and even scared leading up to the lesson. This was something I'd put off for so long. The thought of driving just terrified me. What if I made a mistake and got hurt? What if I make a mistake and somebody else gets hurt? There's so much to concentrate on and so much to remember that it was kind of intimidating. The day came and I got a text from the instructor saying he was outside my house. So I went out, we did introductions, and I said to him, just so you know, I'm autistic. I'm telling you in case I ever don't immediately comprehend anything you're saying, and because I probably learn a bit differently than other students. So we got in the car and he walked me through the basics such as adjusting my seat, adjusting the mirrors, gave me a rundown on all the buttons and stuff. Then, after taking a deep breath, I gathered my nerves and we got started.
Okay, now, what do you do next?
Floor it?
Yes. No, don't floor it.
Floor it?
No, don't floor it.
Okay, floor it!
So I put the car in drive and we went easy at first, just driving around my neighborhood so I could get used to driving in a safer environment. It was pretty empty that early in the morning, not much risk of hitting anything. So we did that for maybe 20 to 30 minutes, and then we left my neighborhood and started to drive out on the actual road. Now this was the scariest part. There were lots of other cars out there, all going pretty fast. If something was to go wrong, this is where it would happen. But then came the surprise. Nothing bad happened. Everything went fine, and it took me a lot of getting used to, but I didn't crash or anything. What I had the most trouble getting used to was turning. He kept telling me I was using too much gas, and I also had a bit of trouble telling how much I needed to turn the wheel for different types of turns. But overall, I think I did alright, considering I was on my first day. I only really made one big mistake. I missed the stop sign and the instructor had to use his brakes. After an hour and a half of our lesson was over, we went back to my house, and I swear my legs felt like jelly. He kept telling me I was using too much gas, and I also had a bit of trouble telling how much I needed to turn the wheel for different types of turns. But overall, I think I did alright. Considering I was on my first day, I only really had one big mistake. I missed the stop sign and the instructor had to use his brakes. After an hour and a half, our lesson was over. We went back to my house, and I swear my legs felt like jelly. It must have been the nerves. But there we go, the first day was done, and despite how scary that was, I thought it went rather well. Day 2 was here, and honestly, I was probably just as nervous, if not more so, than the first day. Because the previous day, he told me we were going to go on the highway for the next lesson. Just like the last time he texted me he was here, I went out and started setting up the car, and then we were on our way. On the way there, he had me follow the GPS, which definitely added another layer to everything, another thing to focus on. Driving on the highway was certainly an experience. There were so many cars and they were all going at a very high speed. One mistake could be fatal. One conversation we had was, stay in your lane, don't be afraid of the truck. And I'm thinking, it's a big truck! So we drove for a really long time, and then I got to take my first U-turn. And we turned around and headed back the way we came. Something I had a lot of trouble with was staying in the middle of my lane, not drifting to the left or the right. He kept reminding me about that. We did a lot of lane shift practice today with everything else. Put on your signal, check the shoulder if it's clear or go. Today I only had one big mistake. Towards the end, when we were coming off the highway, there was a turn and I ended up going into someone else's lane, and the instructor had to use his brakes. I could tell immediately though why it happened. I didn't cut my rear enough when it was time to turn. Then, funnily enough, I missed the turn going into my own neighborhood. I had to keep going and then make my second U-turn. Anyway, despite those mishaps, I think it once again went good. My next lesson was 2 days after the second one. He actually called me because he was able to do the lesson earlier than scheduled because of the cancellation. So we went back out onto the highway and this time drove specifically to the DMV. Once we were there, we went to a testing area so we could practice some parking related stuff. First thing I was told is that I'm basically never going to be using gas when parking, because in his words, the faster we go, the less control we'll have. So first he taught me how to do a 3-point turn, and then he showed me how to do a left side park. After I parked, we got out to look at how I did, and it was pretty good for my first try. We practiced left-hand parking for a couple more minutes, but then we had to leave the area because someone was coming in for an official test. He actually had me park to watch the test and was pointing out things the other person was doing. Then, after it was clear he had just enough time to go back in and teach me about parallel parking, which wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, honestly. He explained it in a way that was easy to understand. Then we went back on the highway and headed home. And on the way there, we ran into the same turn that I had trouble with before. But this time, I nailed it. Honestly, I felt a lot better with today's lesson. It's still scary, but with each lesson, I am noticeably feeling more and more confident. And that's how I learned to drive for the most part. Thanks for watching my video, and...
Hold it!
Yeah, so this is the part of the video where things are going to get very weird, a little sketchy. This is the part of the video where things get a little wild, but I swear everything I'm going to talk about actually happened. So I had a bit of an incident on my second to last driving lesson that kind of put some sketchy events from earlier into perspective. So to start off, when I signed up for the lessons, I was originally only supposed to have 5 lessons. And you have to understand, as an autistic person, I can often be, shall we say, gullible or easy to take advantage of, and I think he definitely realized this. Because after just the 3rd lesson, when I had 2 more left, like the minute we got back to my house, he started being very insistent on trying to convince me to buy 2 more lessons from him. He made it out to be like he definitely thought I needed the extra lessons, and it would be in my best interest to get extra lessons. He was so insistent to the point that he was trying to get me to pay for the extra lessons before he even left my house. Now, when I started, I only intended to do 5 lessons because, to be honest, it was pretty expensive. Which, to be fair, is not unique to this one school. All the other schools I looked into were pretty expensive too. Learning to drive is not a cheap thing to do, which inherently has accessibility issues, but that's another topic. Anyway, I didn't even realize this until someone pointed it out to me later, because I don't tend to think people are being dishonest with me. I tend to take things at face value. But the pricing didn't even make sense. It was $650 for 5 lessons, right? So then why was it $450 for just another 2 lessons? Anyway, now that the context is out of the way, let's get into the event that made me start reevaluating all the other weird stuff that happened. So as soon as I get in the car, he starts trying to talk me into buying some more lessons again. Mind you, once again, I still had 1 more lesson left, and I'm already paying for several lessons more than what I wanted to take. This time, though, I stood my ground and told him I wouldn't be buying anymore. So for the 6th lesson, he didn't have a plan for our lesson. He was just letting me drive around and occasionally telling me to go a certain way. And if you know anything about me, it's that I do not like the spontaneous approach. I'd much rather have a concrete plan for what we're doing. Anyway, about 40 minutes to an hour into our lesson, he had me turn onto a pretty narrow, grinding road. I'd never been on a road like this before, so I was pretty nervous. Long story short, I was overcompensating too far to the right, and ended up hitting his mirror against something and damaging it. He seems convinced it was a trash can that I hit. He has me drive for a bit, then has me pull over and swap seats with him. I later found out that the instructor should have, by regulation, stopped the car right away at the scene of the accident. At this point, he started driving around looking for the spot of the accident for a good 10 to 20 minutes because he wanted to find the piece that fell off the mirror, and that really says something about how long he had me drive after the accident because he could not find it. So then he starts driving me home, and on the way he tells me that I have to pay him $320 for the mirror, which immediately I'm thrown off because you'd think a driving school would have insurance that would cover any damage to their car. And at one point during the car ride, he goes on the phone, and I don't know for sure who he was talking to, but he lies and tells them that he got hit overnight in a parking lot, and that's where the damage is from. I don't know why he would say that in front of me unless he just thought because I'm autistic I wouldn't realize the implications of it. So of course the entire ride home I'm texting my parents about what happened, and my dad is practically screaming at me not to give him any money. So my dad pretty much handles it when we get there. He asks for the instructor's insurance information because, shocker, my dad's an insurance agent and knows about the stuff, which I don't think he was expecting, and the instructor refuses to show him it. Eventually he leaves. I think he was expecting to get paid later. Well, later that night, on my parents' advice, I text him saying thank you for the lessons, but I would not be doing the final lesson, and anything about the car mirror he would have to go for my father for. The next morning, I of course woke up several text messages and several missed calls. I think he thought he was going to get the money out of me on the last lesson. He ended up telling my dad that he has a week to pay him the $320 or else. Yeah, it turns out that was most likely an empty threat. So this event kind of put a bunch of weird things that have been happening during the 2 weeks of my lessons into perspective and recontextualized them. This will be the wildest part of the video, so bear with me. I swear this is all true. First of all, when I paid for the extra lessons, he had me make the check out to his name. My parents were like, yeah, if we were there, we would have insisted it be made out to the company. I definitely feel like he was infantilizing me a bit, like he was always calling me buddy, like I'm a little kid or something. And I'm sure me being autistic is why he thought he could get away with so much. These next two things happened on the same day on like our fourth lesson. We were at the DMV doing parking practice and taking a break when he starts bringing up how much he wants me to leave a review for his business. So I'm like, yeah, no problem, I'll do it later. Meaning, intending to do it after I finish all my lessons. But he was very insistent. He kept saying stuff like, why don't you do it now? You might forget to do it later. Do it now. And he had me take my phone out and leave a review right in front of him, which I really didn't like. And the second thing that happened, I made an offhanded comment about my phone getting bad signal because it's old, and he asked me if I wanted to buy an iPhone from him because he has another business selling iPhones. It's very weird, in my opinion, to have your driving teacher try to sell you a cell phone. The final thing happened on the fifth lesson. I was driving when he asked me if I would mind if he reschedules my next lesson to another day. I, of course, say yes because I thought it was for something important. Then, right next to me, he gets on a call with his friends and starts arranging a trip to go to an amusement park, and then he calls the park itself to ask about, ticket prices. All this while I'm supposed to be getting a driving lesson, by the way, and the date they plan to go, the time my lesson that he rescheduled was supposed to be at. So you're probably wondering, did any of this lead anywhere? Well, we ended up talking to some people at the DMV about this. He had a lot of violations, it seems. He should have stopped immediately after I hit something and called the police, as that's required of him as a driving instructor. He should have had his insurance information on him. The contract that the instructor had me sign at the start of the lessons was not the contract registered with the DMV. According to the DMV, we are not obligated to pay for the damaged mirror. The driving school should have had insurance to cover it. It sounded like the score was going to be investigated, but I haven't heard anything from the DMV since, so I don't know if it actually happened. This all happened around the start of September 2025, and now it's March. So I guess the lesson, if anyone else is considering learning to drive, maybe don't tell your instructor you're autistic. I thought it would make him a little more patient with me, but I think it just let him know I was easier to take advantage of than his usual clients and he could get more money out of me. So after all of that, I pretty much just continued learning on my own. From September until the end of November, I would drive with an experienced driver in the passenger seat. usually one of my parents. For example, if I had to go to work, I would drive the two of us there, then they'd leave and come back at the end of my shift and I'd drive us home. In December of 2025, I started driving on my own officially, and I've been doing so since then. As of now, I've been driving by myself for about half a year. And so that's my story of learning how to drive as an autistic adult. Definitely a weird one, lots of ups and downs. What do you think of all this? Did you also learn to drive late? Do you want to learn? Let me know. Until next time, goodbye.